Who's actually getting the most out of a fine and light gaming laptop, and who should just walk away? If you're wondering whether the MSI thin gaming laptop can handle a day of work meetings, a few hours of AAA titles, and still feel like a decent everyday machine, you're not alone. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's break down the moments that matter: the commute, the coffee shop gaming session, the weekend edit suite, and see if the price tag lines up with the real-world value. First off, the 15.6-inch Full HD panel with a 144Hz refresh rate is the kind of screen you notice the minute you start moving a mouse in a fast-paced shooter. In a cramped train carriage, the high refresh makes every frame feel smoother, and the 1080p resolution keeps the battery from draining as fast as a 4K panel would. For a creator who toggles between Discord, Photoshop, and a quick League of Legends match, the display hits a sweet spot, crisp enough for design work, fast enough for competitive play. It's not a cinema-grade screen, but you're not paying for a 4K OLED here, you're paying for a balance of speed and portability. Now, let's talk about the heart of the machine, a 13th Gen Intel Core i5-13420H paired with an RTX 4050. In my own testing, the i5 handled everyday tasks: email, spreadsheets, video calls, without any hiccup, and when I launched Shadow of the Tomb Raider at medium settings, the RTX 4050 kept the frame rate hovering just above 60 frames per second. That's the kind of performance you need if you're a student who codes by day and raids dungeons by night. The 32GB of DDR4 RAM is a bit of a surprise in a thin chassis, and it's the part that makes multitasking feel effortless. I could have Chrome tabs, a Unity editor, and a game running side by side and still see no stutter. For anyone who runs virtual machines or does light video rendering, that memory pool is a genuine productivity boost. Storage is another practical win. A 1TB PCIe NVMe SSD not only gives you room for a large game library, but it also cuts load times to a fraction of what you'd expect from a traditional SATA drive. When I swapped from my old laptop to this MSI, the difference was obvious. Loading into open-world maps took seconds instead of minutes, and installing big titles no longer meant waiting half an hour for the drive to spin up. The SSD also adds a quiet, low-heat element that keeps the thin chassis from feeling hot during longer sessions. But the strengths come with trade-offs you'll feel if you try to push the machine hard for many hours straight. The laptop's thin profile limits the size of its cooling solution, so under sustained gaming or rendering loads the fans kick in noticeably. In a 3-hour marathon of Cyberpunk 2077, the fan noise rose to a level that would make a dorm roommate raise an eyebrow, and the chassis warmed up enough that you'd want a lap desk. Battery life follows the same pattern, with the display at 144Hz and the RTX 4050 active. You'll see roughly 3 to 4 hours of mixed use before you need to plug in. If you plan to game on the go without a charger, that's a real limitation. Port selection is another hidden consideration. The thin design means you're left with a couple of USB-C ports, a single USB-A, and a HDMI out. You can't attach a full-size external GPU or a multi-monitor rig without a dock, and the lack of a dedicated Ethernet jack could be a deal-breaker for competitive players who demand a rock-solid connection. That said, most people who buy a portable gaming laptop already accept a minimalist port layout as the price of mobility. So, who should click add to cart and who should keep scrolling? If you're a college student, a remote worker, or a creator who needs a laptop that can juggle 30 Chrome tabs, a Photoshop canvas, and a game without a hiccup, the MSI thin gaming laptop hits the mark. Its 32GB of RAM and 1TB SSD give you headroom for future projects, and the RTX 4050 delivers enough graphics muscle for current AAA titles at respectable settings. The form factor lets you toss it into a backpack, making it ideal for commuters who still want a genuine gaming experience. Conversely, if you're a hardcore esports athlete who demands the absolute highest frame rates, a professional video editor who needs a 4K display and massive color accuracy, or someone who expects to game for 8 hours on a single charge, this isn't the best fit. You'll likely feel the thermal throttling sooner, and the battery will force you back to a wall outlet more often than you'd like. For those users, a larger, more robust gaming laptop or a desktop rig will provide a more comfortable experience. The price sits in a sweet spot between entry-level gaming laptops and the premium ultrabooks that claim to do everything. You're not paying for a 4K OLED or a titanium chassis, but you are getting a machine that, out of the box,